So what I'm going to do in a brief video, we're going to read something and then talk about it a little bit. But basically, it's something that you don't see too often when you see a champion petitioning to fight as mandatory. But I'm going to read this first, and then we're going to talk about it. T-Street Controversy with RealCombatMedia.com, T-Street Controversy Live. Dear Chairman Mendoza, I write as the manager. Oh, by the way, Mendoza, I forgot his first name. But basically, he runs the WBA. Dear Chairman Mendoza, I write as the manager of Guillermo Rigondeaux, the Unified WBA, WBO Champion. I write to request enforcement of the mandatory. Uniquely, in the Super Bantamweight division, Guillermo Rigondeaux is the Unified Champion, and Scott Quigg is the Regular Champion. Clearly, as the Regular Champion, Quigg is the highest-ranked contender in the division. While he was injured, he is now back training, and there's no reason why Mr. Rigondeaux cannot or should not fulfill his mandatory obligations against Mr. Quigg. We are aware that there are some discussions about a bout between Quigg and Frampton. However, we have been in touch with the IBF, and they will not sanction the unification fight without anyone other than the highest level champion, which in case is Guillermo Rigondeaux. We respectfully suggest that it is best to deal with the mandatory issue now and request that Quigg and Guillermo be directed to begin negotiations. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Hyde. Mr. Gary Hyde. Oh, isn't that crazy? I don't know why I'm laughing, but I just find it humorous. Now, if you didn't know, Scott Quigg and Quigg and Frampton met up in the ring, face-to-face confrontation right after Scott Quigg defeated Chris Avalos, and we knew for quite some time now, international boxing fans, that Scott Quigg and Quigg and Frampton would have to face eventually. And in my opinion, from my understanding, the winner of this fight was going to try to go after Leo Santa Cruz and or Guillermo Rigondeaux. Scott Quigg hasn't been too vocal about fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux, even though, yes, he is the WBA regular champion. And if you don't know how the WBA works, I hate explaining it all the time, but they have two belts. So therefore, you can be the WBA Super World, and then you can be the WBA World or Regular Champion, which means that's not necessarily meaning you're the #1 contender, because of course they have the WBA Interim too, right? So it's not necessarily meaning you're the #1 contender. It just means that you got a half of the title. And we saw that Carl Froch, right, has been ordered by the WBA to fight Andre Ward. Carl Froch, WBA regular, WBA World Champion. Then you have Andre Ward, the WBA Super World Champion. So you start asking yourself the questions of, well, Keith Thurman, the WBA regular World Champion, Floyd Money Mayweather, the WBA Super World Champion. Will them two fight? Will they be ordered to fight each other? Or why doesn't Keith Thurman write a letter to the WBA too? Now, we're hearing right now, before I go on and talk about more WBA champions, and I'm going to do it, we have to understand that they're completely right. And in this era we're in right now, I'm talking about over these last 6, 7, 8 months, we've been seeing a lot of mandatories, more than I've seen in the entire time I've been covering boxing. And right now, it's needed. It's needed to create the competition between the promoters. And also, we're going to find out who's who as far as, listen, now you got to fight me. So I'm totally for Scott Quigg versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. If you don't know the type of fighter Scott Quigg is, he's a pressure fighter. He does have a multiple knockdown chance against Guillermo Rigondeaux. I'm not saying he can beat Guillermo Rigondeaux, but yes, I do see that for one, let's talk about this. Guillermo Rigondeaux will go to the UK to fight Scott Quigg. There's no politics involved with fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux. Hell, I even think the man will take less money. He's been fighting over in Japan his last couple fights in front of massive crowds and beating people up. His last fight. Also, he fought in Japan. He fought in China against Luk Nong Yang Toy at the Kokik Gym. Knocked him out, with the cheap shot. Basically, not really a cheap shot. Protect yourself at all times. And basically, he did everything he was supposed to do in 2014. He fought the people as far as his mandatories. And then when it came to big fights, we can't blame him for none of that, because we know that when it came to the big fights, he was right there. So when it came to Leo Santa Cruz, Quigg and Frampton, Scott Quigg too, he was right there. To whereas in now, To whereas in now he's in a situation where it's like, okay, you don't fight me, I'm going to come and get you. You're my number one contender, or you want to be number one contender, I'm going to come fight you. And I completely understand that. So, you know, as far as the WBA is concerned, listen, and I understand when it comes to Mayweather, he's in a different league. But, you know, after Mayweather Pacquiao, then listen, make him fight his mandatories. You know, what more money can he make? Make him fight his mandatories, you know? So when it comes to the WBA, Erislandy is the regular. Erislandy is the world champion. When it comes to the WBA Super World Champion at 140-54, it's Floyd Money Mayweather. How about at 160? Ooh, things get interesting there. You have the WBA interim champion Chris Eubank Jr. You have the WBA World Regular Champion in Danny Jacobs, and you got Gennady Golovkin, who's the WBC interim champion, and the WBA Super World Champion. You know, it's just these politics in boxing, man. I'm telling you. But on T-Street Controversy, this is T-Street Controversy Live of RealCombatMedia.com. So, I'll read the letter to you once again. You know, might as well. Dear Chairman Mendoza, I write as the manager of Guillermo Rigondeaux and Unified WBA WBO Champion. I write to request enforcement of the mandatory. Uniquely in the super bantamweight division, Guillermo Rigondeaux is the Unified Champion and Scott Quigg is the regular champion. Clearly, as the regular champion, Quigg is the highest ranked contender in the division. While he was injured, he is now back in training, and there is no reason why Mr. Rigondeaux cannot or should not fulfill his mandatory obligations against Mr. Quigg. We are aware that there are some discussions about a bout between Quigg and Frampton. However, we have been in touch with the IBF, and they will not sanction the unification fight. They will not sanction the unification fight with anyone other than the highest level champion, which in this case is Guillermo Rigondeaux. We respectfully suggest that it is best to deal with the mandatory issue now and request that Quigg and Guillermo be directed to begin negotiations. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Hyde. It says Gary Hyde, but I don't want to say Mr. Hyde. Back to editing videos I go. T-Street Controversy.